You're looking at 412,000 pounds of metal, fuel, and people somehow floating through the air at 35,000 feet. A Boeing 747 weighs as much as 40 elephants, and yet it glides through the sky like it's no big deal. Before we get started, check out the link in the description to download our ebook. Here's the thing. When you actually look at the physics of flight, aeroplanes really shouldn't work. They're too heavy, they're the wrong shape, and they're defying one of the most fundamental forces in the universe: gravity. So how do airplanes really stay in the sky? Buckle up, because the answer is way cooler than you think, and it's not what you learned in school. What's up, everyone? Today, we're diving into one of the most mind-bending questions in physics. How do airplanes fly? And I'm not talking about the simple answer you get from a textbook. I mean the real answer, the one that explains why a 400-ton hunk of metal doesn't just plummet to the ground the second it leaves the runway. Because here's the shocking truth: most people don't actually understand how planes stay in the sky. Even pilots sometimes get the explanation wrong. And if you think it's just because of Bernoulli's principle, or air going faster over the wing, well, you're only getting part of the story. By the end of this video, you'll understand the four forces of flight, why airplanes don't fall, and why the physics of flight is so counterintuitive that it still blows scientists' minds today. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the basics. Every airplane in the sky is being acted on by four main forces at all times. 1. Weight. Gravity, pulling the plane down. This is the big one. A fully loaded passenger jet can weigh over 400 tons. That's a lot of downward force. 2. Thrust. The engines push the plane forward. Without thrust, the plane would just sit there like a very expensive paperweight. 3. Drag. Air resistance, pushing back against the plane. The faster you go, the more drag you feel. Think of sticking your hand out of a car window, that's drag. 4. Lift. The mysterious upward force that keeps the plane in the air. This is the one everyone gets confused about. For a plane to stay in the air, these four forces have to be perfectly balanced. Lift has to equal weight, and thrust has to overcome drag. Simple, right? Not so fast. Because here's where it gets weird. How does lift even work? How does air, something you can't even see, generate enough force to lift a 747? The secret is in the wing. Specifically, the shape of the wing. Airplane wings aren't flat. They're curved on top and flatter on the bottom. This special shape is called an airfoil, and it's the key to understanding how planes stay in the sky. Now, you've probably heard the classic explanation. Air travels faster over the curved top of the wing, which creates lower pressure, and that sucks the wing upward. That's called Bernoulli's principle, and it's partially true, but it's not the whole story. Here's what's actually happening. Part 1. Bernoulli's principle. When air flows over the curved top of the wing, it has to travel slightly faster than the air underneath. According to Bernoulli's principle, faster moving air creates lower pressure, so you get higher pressure below the wing and lower pressure above it. And that pressure difference pushes the wing upward. But here's the problem. Bernoulli's principle alone doesn't create enough lift to keep a jumbo jet in the air. So what's the rest of the story? Part 2. Newton's third law, the real MVP. This is the part most people miss. Wings don't just slice through the air, they push it downward. The wing is angled slightly upward. This is called the angle of attack. As the plane moves forward, the wing smashes into air molecules and deflects them downward. And according to Newton's third law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When the wing pushes air down, the air pushes the wing up. Think of it like this. Imagine you're on a skateboard and you throw a heavy basketball forward. You'd roll backward, right? The wing is doing the same thing, except it's throwing trillions of air molecules downward every second. And those molecules push back, creating massive upward force. So, the real answer to how do airplanes fly is, it's a combination of Bernoulli's principle and Newton's third law. The wing redirects air downward, and the pressure difference across the wing adds even more lift. Together, they generate enough upward force to overcome gravity. Pretty cool, right? But lift is only half the equation. Because even if you have enough lift to overcome weight, the plane won't stay in the air unless it keeps moving forward. And that's where thrust comes in. Jet engines work by sucking in massive amounts of air, compressing it, mixing it with fuel, igniting it, and then blasting it out the back at incredible speeds. This creates thrust, the forward force that propels the plane. And just like the wing, the engine uses Newton's third law. Hot gases shoot backward, so the plane gets pushed forward. But here's the catch. The faster the plane goes, the more drag it experiences. Drag is just air resistance, and it increases exponentially with speed. That's why fighter jets need insanely powerful engines. They're constantly fighting against drag. For the plane to maintain altitude and speed, thrust has to equal drag. If thrust drops below drag, the plane slows down, and if it slows down too much, it doesn't generate enough lift. And yeah, you can imagine what happens next. This is called a stall, and it's one of the most dangerous situations in aviation. But as long as the engines keep producing thrust and the wings keep generating lift, the plane stays in the sky. All right, let's bust some myths. Myth number 1. Planes are too heavy to fly. Wrong. Weight doesn't matter as long as you have enough lift to counteract it. A paper airplane weighs almost nothing, but it still needs lift to stay in the air. A 747 weighs 400 tons, but its wings are huge, so they generate massive amounts of lift. It's all about the balance of forces. Myth number 2, the curved top of the wing is the only reason planes fly. Nope. As we just explained, Bernoulli's principle is only part of the story. The wing's angle of attack and Newton's third law do most of the heavy lifting literally. Myth number 3, planes glide because they're shaped like birds. Not quite. Birds and planes both use airfoils, but the mechanics are different. Birds flap their wings to create thrust and lift at the same time. Planes use engines for thrust and wings for lift. Birds are way cooler, honestly. Myth number 4. If the engines fail, the plane drops like a rock. False. Planes are actually really good gliders. If the engines stop, the plane can glide for miles before landing. In fact, there have been cases where pilots safely landed planes after complete engine failure. They're basically flying bricks, but they can glide. Before we wrap up, here are some wild facts about airplane flight. 1. The Airbus A380, the world's largest passenger plane, can carry up to 850 people. That's almost 600 tons at takeoff. And it still flies like a dream. 2. Modern airplanes are so efficient that they use less fuel per passenger than most cars. A Boeing 787 gets about 100 miles per gallon per passenger. Your car can't do that. 3. Wings are flexible. During flight, the tips of a 747's wings can flex up to 20 feet. They're designed to bend, so they don't snap under stress. For the fastest commercial plane ever was the Concorde, which could fly at over 1,350 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound. You could fly from New York to London in under 3 hours. Unfortunately, it was retired in 2003, and we've been stuck with slow planes ever since. So, how do airplanes really stay in the sky? To sum it up, airplanes fly because of a perfect balance of 4 forces: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. Lift is generated by the shape of the wing and the way it deflects air downward. Thrust from the engines keeps the plane moving forward, which allows the wings to generate lift. And as long as these forces stay balanced, the plane stays in the air. It's a beautiful combination of physics, engineering, and a little bit of magic. And the craziest part? We've only been doing this for about 120 years. The Wright brothers made their first flight in 1903. Now we have planes that can carry hundreds of people across oceans without breaking a sweat. Pretty incredible, right? If you made it this far, thanks for watching. If you learned something new, smash that like button and subscribe for more videos breaking down the science behind everyday things. And drop a comment. What topic should I cover next? How do rockets work? Why do ships float? Let me know. Catch you in the next one.